Hi, it's T. Carlson here, and any day is a good day for the cinema of Alfred Hitchcock, one of the all-time great filmmakers. We've been getting some collections of Hitchcock movies in 4K over the last few years, and at long last we have the third installment. This is the third and latest installment in the Alfred Hitchcock Classics collection, combining 5 of his films that are owned by Universal Pictures. There are many Hitchcock films that are not owned by Universal that have yet to get a 4K release, North by Northwest probably being the biggest one of the bunch. So those will be a story for another day that we hopefully will see in the 4K format. In the meantime, I'm going to unbox this release, talk about the movies, talk about the transfers, share my opinions, and let you know if this one gets my recommendation. Here's the front cover. Of course, you got Hitchcock's silhouette and then photos from a few of the movies there. This has Rope, The Man Who Knew Too Much, Torn Curtain, Topaz, and Frenzy. There's the spine, top of the box, the other side, which slides out, bottom, which has rating and runtime information, and then this comes out, and of course it's in the book format like the other sets. I like this style of packaging for the way it looks, but I'm not a fan of it because it's easy to get fingerprints on the discs. Pretty much the same thing as the front cover of the outer box. Here's the spine, back cover, nice shot of Hitchcock, and I think those are like the same pictures that are on the front box itself. We do get a digital code of the films here, and on the back you get an ad for some other Universal 4K releases. Here's the inner cover of the packaging. Here is the back inner cover of the packaging. And we'll just go through page by page, and I'll talk about the films a little. First movie we have in here from 1948 is Rope, which of course was the first of 4 Hitchcock films to star James Stewart. This was originally released by Warner Brothers, but the rights are now held by Universal. Now each page here has the movie poster, images from the movie, a list of special features, description of the film, and a quote from the film. And I'll read the description of the movie as follows. 2 friends strangle a classmate and then hold a party for their victim's family and friends while their former teacher becomes increasingly suspicious that his students have turned his intellectual theories into brutal reality. Rope is an interesting experiment for Hitchcock. The movie only clocks in at about 80 minutes, but it certainly packs a lot into that 80 minutes. The entire film takes place in one location, and on top of that, most of the movie is shot as one continuous shot without a lot of frame transitions like you get in standard films. The 2 main characters in the film have a great chemistry with one another, clashing after what they've done. And of course, James Stewart, always one of Hollywood's great actors, serves as an interesting foil, a former schoolmaster to the boys who becomes aware of their plans and who may even have initially put these ideas into their heads. They've got a fancy dinner party for all their guests, but they have the interesting dilemma, of course, of having to hide the body, meanwhile entertaining their guests. How will it go? This one's certainly classic Hitchcock, and a man who certainly had more hits than misses in his career. I've always loved Rope, and I'm glad that it's finally on 4K. Film number 2 in the set is The Man Who Knew Too Much from 1956. Actually a remake of an older Hitchcock film from way back in the day. I've not seen the original version, so I can't really do any comparisons there. This one was originally released by Paramount Pictures, but of course, like the others, it's now held by Universal. That's actually true of several Hitchcock films. James Stewart and Doris Day stars a vacationing American couple who accidentally become involved in an international assassination plot and must take matters into their own hands after their son is kidnapped. One thing I love about Alfred Hitchcock, you like to take ordinary, average people and throw them into extraordinary circumstances they wouldn't normally find themselves in. In this case, we have a couple, the man being a doctor and the woman being a former star of the stage, and their young son ends up kidnapped during their trip to the Middle East, and unfortunately, what do they do under those circumstances? Do they go to the police with the information they have, or try to solve matters on their own? Seeing how ordinary people react in situations like this, it's one of the things that made Hitchcock great, and this is certainly one of his very, very good films. I don't know if I'd call it one of his absolute best, but it's one that's a lot of fun to revisit. We then have from 1966, Torn Curtain, which starred Julie Andrews and Paul Newman. Paul Newman and Julie Andrews star in this action-packed thriller about a world-famous scientist who goes undercover to get top-secret information and ends up running for his life from enemy agents. Unfortunately, this is where Hitchcock's career kind of took a downward spiral. Torn Curtain sounds good in principle. I mean, it's a spy thriller amidst the Cold War starring Julie Andrews and Paul Newman, two of Hollywood's all-time greats. Unfortunately, the movie just does not work that well as a movie. The original source material was probably a lot more compelling and easier to follow, but Torn Curtain commits the sin that no movie should commit, especially a Hitchcock film. It's dull. I mean, much of this movie is pretty much just dialogue, moving from one location to another, having to keep up with plot elements, and very quickly losing interest. It's easily one of the worst films Hitchcock ever made. There is one decent, suspenseful fight scene that takes place at a rural farm, but unfortunately that ends up being the exception and not the rule. This is one Hitchcock movie you can avoid, and one that I don't think I'll find myself sitting through again after this. And I have forced myself to sit through it on more than a few occasions. Next up from 1969 we have Topaz. This was an unusual film in that it didn't really have any big Hollywood stars in it. Most of the people here were movie stars on international cinema and not in the United States or the Hollywood scene. John Forsythe stars as an American CIA agent who hires a French operative to travel to Cuba and investigate rumors of Russian missiles and a spy codenamed Topaz. Unfortunately, this one kind of falls under the same umbrella as Torn Curtain. It's a political, intrigue, suspense thriller, but as a movie, it's just dull. And this one drags on for nearly 2.5 hours. Like Torn Curtain, there's maybe like one or two good elements of suspense. And the cast of this movie is actually not half bad. It's a little weird to see John Vernon playing a Cuban man, but he's actually quite imposing in his scenes and maybe the best thing about the movie. There is a nice scene of suspense and espionage where a man has to masquerade as a magazine man to get an interview from some Cubans, which is a cover to steal some of their secrets, but sadly, no other scene in the movie even comes close to that one. Despite everything it tries, Topaz, like Torn Curtain, is just dull and easily one of the worst films in the entire Alfred Hitchcock catalog. These two movies you can easily skip. Fortunately, Hitch made a fine return to form in 1972 with Frenzy. To my knowledge, this was the only Alfred Hitchcock film that was rated R upon its release. I know Psycho has since been re-rated R since it came out before the MPAA rating system, but that's a story for another day. In this morbid blend of horror and wit, the necktie murderer has the London police on red alert, and an innocent man is on a desperate quest to find the real criminal and clear his own name. Some of the best stories from Alfred Hitchcock are the ones about the wrongfully accused, and I'm so glad he revisited this type of movie one last time. Frenzy pulls it off very nicely, seeing a man who's fired from his job and in a state of disarray, and to top it all off, he's accused of murder. There's a necktie murderer in England who, as his name would dictate, uses neckties to strangle his victims. And when this man finds himself the main suspect in these crimes, who can he go to? Who can he trust? And who is the real necktie murderer? It is a pretty dark and suspenseful film, certainly more explicit than any other Hitchcock film, with straight-up nudity in a few scenes and certainly slightly stronger violence, even if these actual sequences don't occur throughout the film that often. I wouldn't say this is like one of the absolute greatest films Alfred Hitchcock ever made, but it's certainly an underrated one, and one that I was very happy to revisit when I went through and purchased this set. So how do these movies look in 4K? I'm happy to say that every single movie in here is a step up from its Blu-ray counterpart. Just the obligatory disclaimer that all the images you see in this review are taken from the Blu-rays. They are identical to the earlier released ones, which aren't necessarily the best looking, but unfortunately I don't have any way of capturing 4K images, so that's the best I can do for now. Each film is an improvement over its Blu-ray counterpart. The colors look much more natural. The older Blu-rays had a lot of noise reduction and color boosting. These look far more natural and far better. You get a nice uptick in detail. I'm not going to say any of these are like absolutely beautiful, striking transfers, but I think they are the best these movies will ever look, and for the most part, I think I can be okay with that. The biggest improvement over its Blu-ray counterpart is The Man Who Knew Too Much, which there were a lot of fluctuating colors, and the other Blu-rays tended to have a lot of noise reduction, color boosting, artificial sharpening. I'm happy to say the 4Ks are pretty much devoid of this as far as I can tell, although some of the rear projection work is much more painfully obvious now, although in a way I think that adds to the charms of these movies. No new bonus features as far as I can tell, but we do get all the features that were on the older Blu-rays, and Universal has done us the courtesy of actually porting them to the 4K disc, so you don't have to switch discs just to watch the bonuses, and that's pretty nice. So no matter who you are, you're going to find plenty of interesting bonus features that'll kill plenty of time if you're a fan. Do I recommend this package? Rope, The Man Who Knew Too Much, and Frenzy are all great films that I can easily recommend. Torn Curtain and Topaz are not. They're the worst films Alfred Hitchcock ever made and are very forgettable, and I could do without ever seeing either one of those again. So, it depends on what you can get for cheaper. If you can get Rope, The Man Who Knew Too Much, and Frenzy as individual releases for cheaper than this set, go for them. But if you can find this set on sale for a rock-bottom price, despite the two stinkers on the set, I would say absolutely go for it. It is a highly recommended set for any fan of Alfred Hitchcock and, of course, classic suspense cinema, as only this master could serve up. Are you a fan of Alfred Hitchcock? Did you pick up this set yet? Do you think these films are some of the best that Hitch ever put out? Comment down below and let me know what you think. Also, remember to subscribe to this channel for more content, because I'm always posting new videos, and make sure you give this one a like if you found it helpful. I'm Taylor T. Carlson. See you next time.